Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica Stern, Senior Manager for Local Arts and Business Partnerships here at Americans for the Arts. Welcome to the third session of part 2 of How to Partner with Your Chamber of Commerce series. This one is entitled Arts, Chambers, and Centering Equity. We have multiple resources available for you on this activity page to view in tandem with this recording. Access the toolkit under the Toolkit tab, the transcript for this video under the Transcript tab, and additional resources under the Resources tab. Email us at artsu@artsusa.org should you need any assistance. I'm extremely pleased to welcome Josie Burgett, who serves as the Downtown Activation Manager at the Greater Des Moines Partnership, and Sanjita Pradhan, who serves as the Director of Diversity and Inclusion for the Greater Des Moines Partnership. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I'll hand it over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Jessica. It is a pleasure to be here, and I am excited to tell you a little bit more about myself and Sanjita joining me and the organization that we represent. So I'll start with a quick introduction. My name is Josie, and I have a really fun and exciting role at the Greater Des Moines Partnership. In my role as Downtown Activation Manager, I get to ensure that Downtown Des Moines is a vibrant and welcoming place for people of all communities through our various events and special projects and different pop-up activations and programming. So I will share some examples of that later in the session, but I want to tell you a little bit more about my colleague, Sanjita, who is also joining us today. Sanjita is our Director of Diversity and Inclusion. She leads the diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts for both our internal organization as well as several businesses located in our community. Sanjita is going to kick off the presentation soon with a really important conversation on equity. Before that, I want to share just a little bit more about the Greater Des Moines Partnership. So we both work for the Greater Des Moines Partnership, which is the economic development and community growth organization serving Greater Des Moines. We have 24 affiliate chambers of commerce in our region, which serve over 6,500 member businesses. We work closely with several community groups to ensure that Greater Des Moines is a great place to work, visit, and live. So Sanjita and I are excited to share how the partnership and our local chambers are focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how those efforts really come to life through our programs and partnerships with the art community. So I'm going to let Sanjita start with the most important topic around equity, and I will wrap up this presentation by just sharing some examples of how we've carried this out through our different programs, and hopefully spark some ideas and examples of things that you might be able to bring to your community. So Sanjita, I will kick it off to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Josie, and thank you, Jessica, for inviting to speak to us. Hello, everybody who is watching this recording. Thank you for that kind introduction. I'm really proud to serve as the Director of Diversity and Inclusion at the Greater Des Moines Partnership. And many of you, many of your organizations, I always say each individual and each organization are in their own journey of DEI. So we are in our journey as well, but with you a little bit about what we've done so far. So I know that this group has already been exposed to the concepts and basics of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and particularly equity. But I'd like to just start there a little bit and build on there, because I hope that I'm sure that you've heard about equity from many different speakers, and I don't know about you, but I feel like every practitioner, every person has their own version a little bit, and hopefully that you can take a little bit something new from my conversation as well. So I feel like in the world of DEI, which again, I feel like the concepts and vernacular and terminologies keep changing over the course of time, right? So I just want to give a little bit background that in my opinion, companies and communities were doing D&I work for a very long time, right? It used to be D&I initiative, D&I work. And since 2020, the importance and awareness around the E has been elevated a little bit. And a lot of us were really aware about and started to think about what is equity. And so I would usually say that we're still doing a lot of big D and a very small I and an even smaller E. So all of us are in this journey of learning about diversity, equity, inclusion. And equity and equality, and equity is one of those topics in that whole gamut of alphabet soup that I feel like it's talked about a little bit less than the others. But thank you for engaging in this conversation, because without really talking about equity, what's inequity, we're not going to make progress. So equality, in my opinion, refers to the uniform distribution of resources and opportunities. So in theory, it sounds fair, right? Like we're going to give all of you the same thing. We're going to give all of you the same resources. We're going to give all of you the same policies. We're going to give all of you the same thing. Sounds fair in theory. Except that doesn't work in practice. And it's because all of us don't have the same needs. All of us have different needs. We all come from different backgrounds. I always say our starting line is not the same. So depending on who you are and what kind of life experiences you have, what kind of identities and groups you belong to, there are different unique needs that you have. And so equity, on the other hand, is really about understanding the needs of each individual or groups or communities and providing them with the right resources for them to be successful, okay? Let's look at this image to help us understand that a little bit. So on the top, many of you might have seen this image already, but on the top line, you see that we will give everybody a bicycle. That's equality, right? We're gonna give all of you the same thing. So in theory, that sounds good, but as you can see, it really doesn't matter if you're in a wheelchair, if you're tall, if you're short, giving you the same thing didn't really work. In the contrast, in the bottom line, you can see that each individual has the right type of bicycle. So every individual can enjoy that bicycle in the same way. So that's equity. So think about the work you're doing and think about where you may need to understand the needs of different individuals, different identities, different groups, different communities. And have we created them, given them the right tools? Have we created the right policies for them to equally access the resources? So that's kind of what equity is about. Many of you might have also seen versions of this image. So I'm not going to go through all the details, but what I would like you to think about is think about in your organization, where might you be? Are you in that first image stage where you're giving the same thing to everybody and that's equality for you and that's equal, that's fair for you? Or have you thought about what groups are we not serving? What groups might have different needs? What groups are having difficulty accessing our services? What groups have we not elevated or represented or collaborated, right? Who needs an extra box? Have we given those people, those communities an extra box so they can equally participate in our programming, right? And then very, very less of us are probably in that third category where we talk about, have we been able to remove those systemic barriers so people don't need those boxes to watch the game, right? Where are we at? What do we need to do to go from the image state 1 to image 2 to image 3? That's kind of what I would like you to think about. When I talk about equity, I feel like the closest thing that people can connect with is inequity and equality with women in our community. We all know that women have been historically marginalized for centuries. And so we don't have the right equal access to men, especially when in the workforce, especially in the corporate setting, when we're talking about access to jobs, promotions, where we don't have that same access, right? No wonder we don't have enough number of female CEOs or C-suite or in higher level. And I feel like this image kind of depicts a little bit about the lots of barriers that females have traditionally faced to have that equity, right? Now, there are other images that I've found that can represent the barriers that other people, other individuals, other marginalized identities and groups face. But I'd invite you to spread your imagination and think about these different groups, different individuals with minoritized identities, people who are not mainstream, people who don't look like us every day. It may be barriers of language, it may be barriers of physical ability, it may be barriers hard of hearing or sight, or Language is something that comes to mind for me because I speak multiple languages and English is not my first language. It may be immigration status. It may be a whole bunch of things that are making people have their starting line not at the same. It may have different starting lines. So I like this image because I feel like it clearly just shows us the barriers that women face. And then I'd like you to think about other groups and other identities that may have additional barriers because of which they don't have the same starting line, and because of which we need to identify what are those challenges they have. Why are they not participating? What can we do to remove those barriers, right? Who needs that extra box? Again, I think this is a resource that I pulled from our Capital Crossroads. I put a link in there. It's called the 4 Equity Tool. It's available for anybody to use. So these are some questions that we encourage people to think about as they're doing projects, as they are looking to do new initiatives, and think about some of these questions. I'm really not going to read through all of these questions, but the point is, if we always do the same thing over and over, we're going to get the same results, right? And I always say this is the hard work of diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's not going to happen organically. We have to critically examine what have we done so far, and how are what we've done so far, our practices, our policies, how have these excluded, unintentionally excluded certain groups, right? You may have already heard this phrase before. If you're not actively including, we're actively excluding, right? So just going through thinking about whose voice is not represented, where are they? Who are they? What needs do they have? What languages do they speak? What communication channels do they use? I think is very critical for us to start this work and start this process of finding equity for all groups. So I'll talk a little bit about what we did at the partnership as a best-in-class example, I would say, for you to think about what you can do in your own organizations. So in the partnership, before I came on board to, doing full-time DEI work, the DEI work actually was housed within one area of our organization, and it was under talent. So we have 5 different work areas: public policy, small business development, downtown development, economic development, and talent development. But DEI was housed within talent development because it's related to workforce and talent. So I continued to work with our organization, and we found there's a structural flaw in the way we were doing DEI. If we really want to do DEI meaningfully and create that impact, DEI has to be housed at the top level, and it has to be woven throughout everything we do in our organizations. So if your organization, if you're looking at DEI from one lens, which is a lot of times organizations are looking at it from talent attraction. We want more diverse workforce, but or sometimes they're looking at trainings. Let's do more trainings, right? Those are siloed approach, but that's what I would say. I'd encourage you to look at every single thing you're doing within an organization and evaluate those practices and weave diversity, equity, and inclusion in everything you do. And so I had the opportunity to meet with all the leaders in these different areas and have DEI goals in all of their work plans. And the beauty of that is it's no longer just my job to do DEI anymore. Each individual, each leader is equally accountable for some of the DEI goals. So this is just some examples of what we've done is examining our board makeup, looking at who's on the board, who's sitting at the board, which means who is not sitting at the board, right? How can we invite more diverse perspectives? How are people, that's one critical way at the partnership that we have representation. So if we're completely eliminating certain groups, we're not doing a good job, and it's not going to happen overnight. It will be hard work for us to, find different people, representation, and all of that. So that's the hard work of DEI. We're going to have to examine every single supply that we have, whether that's coffee or paper, to big contracts. And we're going to have to see, where are these dollars going? Are these going to the same, people? Are these going to majority, dominant culture? We have to be very intentional in saying, and set those goals and say, we want 10% of our business to go to diverse businesses. We want whatever that goal is, right? So these are all intentional, is I think the key takeaway for me from these slides. Equity in paying speakers. We know that not all speakers get paid the same. So how can we make sure, we have diverse speakers in all of our programming? Each of our work areas do a number of programming, right? Whether that's webinars or meetings or summits or whatnot. How can we encourage all of our team members to think from that lens? To kind of diversify their speakers. It might be difficult to find them, but if we don't put the effort, we're not going to find them. Equity in paying speakers is the other topic. So not going into detail, I don't want to also take up a whole lot of time, because Josie has some amazing things to share with you. Just maybe one last slide that I have. So in conclusion, I guess, we're here for the community. We know that this is hard work, and not all of us have the resources. Not all companies have a full-time DEI professional. So we're here to support, provide that ongoing support to our 6,500 business members, like Josie said. We offer monthly DEI programming, webinars around lots of different topics. We socialize a lot of blogs around multicultural issues. Variety of topics. We have these multicultural receptions where we partner with multicultural organizations. This is another opportunity where we're very, very intentional about inviting multicultural artists, performance, displays, vendors for food, and so forth. And at the end, I think building relationships with diverse and multicultural communities. It's all relationship based. It will take time. That's the real effort that we need to put in. So hopefully you were able to take some key takeaways from just what we've been able to do in our organization. This is an important component that we have. We have a council. It was usually, largely made up of employers when it began, but we were very intentional about inviting diverse voices to this table. And so, you've probably heard this, nothing about us without us, right? We can't talk about persons with disability or refugees or immigrants or African Americans without having them at the table. So we've made this conscious effort, and I'm very proud to say that we have an equal number of corporations and nonprofits seated at this seat. And they are our eyes and ears. We understand that not one person can be representation of all the community, but they're our eyes and ears. They have very good pulse in the community. They are a good representation of a community. They can provide us with access to the community. And so this is a group that we run things by regularly with new projects, any offerings that we're doing, any programming. So we have a well-rounded approach, and we have taken the time to listen to all the different voices around us. So I think this is my last slide. These are some of these services that we provide. Again, mentioned, we provide one-on-one consultations to a lot of corporations who come to me and say, we want to do something around DEI, but we don't know what to do. We don't know where the resources are. What should we do? How do we measure success, and so forth? And so I've done that for about 40 different companies just this year. Again, we talked about ongoing opportunities, receptions. We just concluded our annual inclusion summit, where we're also very intentional about including multicultural arts and artists. Last year it was all virtual, but we were able to still incorporate a lot of multicultural art during our breaks. This year we had a young Black girl who was performing in our event. We started with a Native American Indigenous group dance performance to center us. So these are just small examples of how we've integrated art in the work, multicultural, diverse artists in the talent side of work. So with that, feel free to visit our website. There's lots of tools and resources, and I will pass it on to my colleague Josie to share with you a little bit about the actual work she's done in integrating some of the multicultural resources and art community in the work that she is doing.
Well, thank you so much, Sanjita. Sanjita talked about the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion, specifically equity in all that we do. And so for the remainder of this session, I'm going to share just some examples of how we try to live that out in our programs and events. Like Sanjita mentioned, it's an ongoing journey and we're not there yet, but we've taken some really intentional steps and we're excited to hopefully maybe get some, spark some ideas in your mind. So I wanted to start by just kind of explaining how we bridge the gap between DEI, events and programs in the art community, because I know that's where all of you are living. So I'm sure you've all heard or maybe used the buzzword, I like to call it placemaking, which is really what my role is focused on. So as you may know, placemaking is just an intentional effort to activate public spaces in a way that promotes health, happiness, and well-being for all people. So not just specific groups, but for all the community. And so it capitalizes on a community's assets by giving the community and the individuals in it a sense of identity. It puts equity at the center. It uses the art community as leaders. So all of you watching this can really be relied on as leaders, catalysts, and creative problem solvers for your community. And then it focuses not only on visitors and how your city looks to the rest of the world, but focuses on how can we actually benefit the people that are already here, that live and work here. So one resource that I often turn to is the Project for Public Spaces. I threw one of their little diagrams on here. This just shows that placemaking is really not one single thing. It's not a siloed approach. There are so many components to placemaking, and kind of the bullets here are just showing that placemaking, first and foremost, is community driven. So while you can have leaders that, push for that, if you don't have a community focus, you're going to kind of get stuck. It has to be inclusive, it has to be collaborative, and most importantly, it's a group effort. So at the partnership, none of the art and placemaking initiatives that we do would be even remotely possible without so many community partnerships. So these are just some examples. There's so many more of groups that we partner with for all of our programs and initiatives. So what you see on this slide is several local arts and culture organizations in Des Moines that allow us to connect with those communities that we maybe wouldn't necessarily have connections with without that bridge gap. So whenever we start a new project, it's so vital for us to just look at who can we involve in this project so that when we work together, we can have just a much larger impact than our reach of maybe people that just follow us, which as we've mentioned is primarily, businesses and a lot of corporations in our community. How can we actually take them out to the people that live here and visit here from all different cultures and backgrounds? So I'm going to share some examples of successful projects that we've done in Des Moines in collaboration with some of these groups to just help us lift up our local artists and support them. So the first example is one that I'm actually working on right now. One piece of Des Moines' identity. So again, when I talked about placemaking, I said, what's your community's assets? What are things that you have that maybe other communities don't? We are home to the Iowa Department for the Blind, which is located right in the heart of our downtown. So this means we have a large community of individuals with visual impairments walking through our skywalk system every day. And one of our recent placemaking projects that really targets a specific community and making them feel welcome is our skywalk art. So we want to ensure that our skywalk is inclusive of all communities. So we partnered with the Iowa Department for the Blind to talk firsthand with members of that community and really learn what they would like to see and like to engage with. So what we found is that members of that community really wanted messages shared that they experience the same joys, struggles, and aspects of everyday life as the rest of us. So while we thought that some of the pieces might be more themed on, empowerment and individualism, what we found is really the statements that that community was giving was, I am a foodie, I am a good friend, I'm a parent, I'm capable, the same things that the rest of us experience on a daily life. So what we did is we put a RFP out to a request for proposal out to local artists, shared it through a few different groups, and we had a committee select the pieces of art. We partnered with another organization, Art Forth Iowa, which is a local art organization that's focused on youth in the arts. ensure that we were opening the door to all artists so that they had the opportunity to showcase the work in our city. So this is an ongoing project. We already have some of these murals started, but all of these pieces of art have a component that is touchable so that people with visual impairments can experience them through other senses. Another fun activation that we did this past summer was called Adventure Stories. This was a way to activate several locations around our downtown and to involve local businesses. So basically there were 5 different adventure stories, fictional stories that people got to read and experience as they walked around downtown and saw on-site visuals. So there was some street painting, murals, sculptures, hanging paper airplanes around our downtown. We even activated a window front, which was a great way to also just make a vacant space more vibrant. And we really relied on artists for the creative problem solving piece of this project. So we identified spaces in our downtown that needed some life and vibrancy, and then we left it up to the creative professionals to decide how can we actually best do that. So we worked with a local public art agency to hire a writer and several local diverse artists to make this idea come to life. Another fun activation we did this summer called Tweet Week. And this was actually started by a group of artists in 2019 that just did this on their own. So during Tweet Week, the artists created and hid ceramic birds around our downtown for people to find and keep. And the first year that this happened, artists were really just doing it out of the goodness of their hearts. They weren't getting paid for it. They weren't necessarily able to share it with the broader community because they were just sharing it with their individual followers. And so individually, those artists didn't have enough of a community following to really get the traction that we saw as an opportunity. So this past year, the artists had reached out to our organization to see if we could help. We said absolutely. We were able to compensate the artists, lift up their work throughout the community by just involving all of our different followings, and then really just got people moving around downtown and supporting local. So there were so many, I guess, benefits to this work, and we were able to just tie all those together, which is the best part about some of these projects. So we knew it was a success because we were hiding, 10 to 20 birds every day, and they were found within an hour or less of being hit. So really successful. We look forward to doing that again. Very similar to Tweet Week, we have another activation that's coming up in just a few weeks called Hide and Seek Ornaments to Keep. And same thing, we put a call out for artists and we share it amongst all those different art groups so that we can get really good involvement. And we were able to involve 14 local artists this year. They'll be compensated and hopefully gain some followers by us basically resharing their social media posts when they go out and hide ornaments in our downtown and share pictures of hints to where people can find them and take them home. So this also addresses a placemaking initiative here in Des Moines. If you've been to Iowa or from a northern state, you know it's hard to get people moving around outside in the winter. So this helps kind of address that and just encourage participants to get outside and shop local while they're out. It's also really important for us to incorporate diversity, equity, and inclusion in all of our events. So we want the public to experience this at our events, and we really encourage public participation when possible and ensure that our events have diversity in our vendors, artists, and entertainers. Sanjita already kind of touched on that. So I'll share a few examples of how we do that with some specific events, and then we'll wrap it up. So this summer we did a free public chalking event called Chalk the Park. It was really targeted to families to get them to come downtown, but we were pleasantly surprised to see a lot of diversity in the participants that came to that event. And so I think sometimes you can maybe have in your head a community you're targeting, but if we open it to all and be open to the idea of maybe young adults coming to a chalking event, you'd be pleasantly surprised, how many groups you can bring together. And so with this event, you can see the picture here. We had a community chalk by numbers piece. So we actually hired a local artist to come and sketch this out and then interact with participants and let them kind of leave their mark on the park. We are proud to say that Des Moines has one of the best farmers markets in the country, located in the heart of our downtown. So one of the really cool programs with our farmers market is that we partner with an organization called Global Greens to support our refugee and immigrant community and to be able to support our broader community by offering culturally diverse products and supporting food benefit programs. So with this program, vendors can basically start in a community booth space and kind of be mentored along and then graduate to actually have their own space as a vendor at our farmers market. And then the last example I'll share is another marquee event that we do every year, which is called the World Food and Music Festival. In 2021, this 3-day festival had representation from 25 different countries just in the food vendors and the food options that participants or attendees had. We also host a naturalization ceremony, which Sanjita is very involved with and helps facilitate. And just this past year, we had 50 individuals become US citizens at the event in front of a huge crowd, which was just so fun to showcase. And there's so many other programming things at the event that we're able to partner with community and arts groups to just make sure we're securing, again, diversity in everything that we showcase. That being said, I'm going to kind of wrap this up. I think Sanjita and I could both talk on and on about, the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion, placemaking, creative problem solving, all those things, but you already know a lot of it. So as you step away from the session, I just really hope you're inspired to go and reach out to other community groups that you might be able to partner with. Schedule a meeting with your local Chamber of Commerce, see if you can partner on an event or activation together. Take a look at your own internal DEI efforts and ask if it's maybe time to give it a refresh or fine tuning. As you know, it's an ongoing journey. And then just don't be afraid to step out and propose creative solutions to your community leaders. If you can identify areas or even specific locations that you think have opportunity, even if there aren't the resources right now to be able to do that, just getting that in front of your community leaders is something that maybe could take place in the future. I would hope that your community leaders would be supportive, and I think most of them would. So we hope you enjoyed the session. I'm sure we would have a lot to learn from all of you too, and hope we can connect soon. But thank you so much for watching. And Sanjita, Jessica, if there's any other last comments, just thank you again for the opportunity.
That was awesome, Josie. I just wanted to mention that I am a part of this organization called ACCE, where we, chambers of commerce from all over the country, we get together, and I'm a part of their DEI group. And just wanting to let you know that, not all chambers had been doing this for many years, but all of them, very certainly can say all of them now are looking into it. All of us are in this different place in this journey. Some are a little advanced, some are in the middle, some are starting. But again, chambers are a great place to start to look into partnering. I always say it's a push and pull strategy. Sometimes you may have to push them a little, sometimes you pull them. But I think they have, big reach and big voice and big power. And so they're an amazing organization to kind of reach out to and figure out how we're serving all individuals. I also want to, I didn't start this, I should have started my comments with this, but please always think about the Native community and the Indigenous community, which I know all of you probably already do. They are extremely marginalized. As we say that they were the first people, whether that's Thanksgiving or anything that we do, it is something that we took away from them. And so just, I always encourage people to think about the Native community, invite them, provide respect, but also elevate them. I think, we did land acknowledgement in our recent event, and somebody said, oh, you did land acknowledgement, now are you going to give them their land back? Well, we can't give them their land back, but what we can do is be very intentional about including them, uplifting them, and really helping them, to have a voice. So I think I should have started with it, but I'm ending with that, so I'm good.
Thank you both so much for this presentation and insight. This has been fantastic and so great to see how you and the partnership are thinking about equity and collaboration across the community and how you're integrating both of those things across the region alongside your cultural partners. And thank you also for mentioning the Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives, ACCE. That's actually how I learned about your Inclusion Council, and they have a great page and weekly blog post that has examples, just all the time examples of chambers across the country that are doing really great work around equity. So thank you, Sanjita, for plugging them. I would encourage everyone to go take a look at that long list because again, it is national and a great way to see who's doing what. They do a little bit of that legwork for us. As a reminder to folks, this is the third session of How to Partner with Your Chamber of Commerce, Part 2. As part of this package, there are 2 additional pre-recorded sessions and a digital toolkit to accompany this content. We invite you to participate in periodic live conversations with various presenters, including Josie and Sanjita, in these programs to ask your questions and discuss with your peers. Part 1, the basics, is available on ArtsU, and also includes 3 on-demand sessions and a toolkit. The entire series is available on ArtsU, and you can also find the toolkits on the Partnership Movement at partnershipmovement.org. Many thanks again to Josie and Sanjita and the Greater Des Moines Partnership, and thank you to our community for listening to this series.